Hi, everybody. Marcus at marcusblankenship.com here, and we're going to be chatting about cost of delay. We'll have a few folks coming in. This is our backup plan for Zoom. So Johanna is coming in, and we see all kinds of wonderful faces. Just be aware that we can see you. So, Johanna, can you hear us? I can hear you.
I have no idea what happened. I unplugged, I replugged, I unplugged, I replugged.
Well, thank you for your persistence. We are recording this so people who registered can sign up, and be aware that some of you, especially a gentleman with the blue hat on, we can see you in case you want. There you go. Well, we like your hat. Don't feel like you have to take it off. But so if your video's on and you decide to pick your nose or scratch yourself, others will see. We just want to make it clear what's happening here. So anyhow, let's go ahead and start. Johanna, thank you again for your persistence. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties.
Oh, like we never have them.
Now, today we're not talking about technical difficulties. That seems like a good that would have been a wonderful webinar. This would have been a good introduction. But today we're going to talk about cost of delay. And I've been reading your book. I've been reading the blog articles, and I'm really so curious because you, I think, have captured what is in so many, the gut, I guess, of when I was a software manager. Like, it's taking so long. I bet it's expensive, but not just philosophically. Like, I would get questions from my boss of, why does this take so long? Or he would say, you know, this never took so long when I was programming. But it was very difficult for him to, for us to quantify what the delay cost us. And so I think that's such a genius name and really clear. There is a cost to delays. And can you tell us about maybe just what, as an introduction to the topic, what kinds of cost are we talking about? Is this like an emotional pain? Is this dollars and cents? What does that mean?
Oh, it's
cost.
It's dollars and cents.
Okay.
It's real honest to God money.
Wow.
And I know. I'm going to try and share my screen so I can talk about the 4 different costs of delay.
There's a screen sharing at the you should.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I have to I have too many windows open. I know, this is such a surprise.
I know.
This is such a surprise. Hang on a second. Let me
no problem.
Let me find that.
Now, while Johanna's doing that, here's what I'd like to do for questions, okay? There is a chat box at the bottom. You can click on it and see the little chat window, and I'll type the first chat, hello. And so if, as we go along here, if you would like to have your question answered, put your question in the chat window. And that will tell us that there's a question. Either we'll be able to address it, or maybe if you don't mind, maybe you would allow us to unmute you and you could ask your question live and we could have a nice discussion about it. So use that chat box that is at the bottom of the window. Looks like, yeah, Johanna.
I am still looking. Here it is. Okay.
Okay.
There. All right. So you should see.
Yes.
An image, and this is hopefully all you see.
That's what I see.
You don't see anything else. So let's talk about, so back when I was a software developer, my boss said to me, we really need to have this particular software released in August, right? So he said, if we release the software in August, I have my mouse here, we will get the maximum revenue, and the product will die off after, a few years, and we'll end of life it. But if we don't release it until September, we lose all this revenue, right? This was a month. So we had the literal delay of revenue from the introduction. We make less money during the time of the overall life, and we have to end of life it earlier.
Now, the first part sounds intuitive. The delay at the front, but the assertion is you actually you cap out at a lower max and you end sooner. And this sounds like sort of a natural market cycle.
Well, it is a natural market cycle. If you think about game companies, or um, it's tax season right now because it's February. We're
Right.
recording this in February. It's for many of us, it's always tax season, but it's tax season in the US right now. And if you are not ready with your tax software and on January 2nd or 3rd, because that's when some people actually start doing their taxes, like my husband. Um, and I know. Look, I think everyone should have a husband like that. Well, a spouse like that, because it's wonderful. I don't have to think about it. But if you're not ready, January 2nd or 3rd, then other people will come and take the sales away. And the longer it takes you to get ready, the less sales you will make. And the earlier you will have to retire your product.
Okay.
So it's actual real dollars and cents. It's 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 and it really depends on how long your product life is. So if you have tax, every year the tax companies come out with more stuff, right? So they have to have a new release every year because we change the taxes every year. So maybe it's not a horrible thing if you're a little bit late 1 year, especially since we had a new tax law go into effect for 2018, or I think some of it went into effect in 2018. Um, and more will go into effect next year. But I think it's really important to say the more your customers get accustomed to using a different solution, that's what these red lines are, because of your delay of introduction, the less likely you are to recapture those customers. And the other interesting thing about that is that um, that's one of the reasons you have fewer sales over the product lifetime and why you might have to end it earlier.
Okay. So this graph here shows us, kind of shows us that the delay will cost money because we don't capture as much revenue. I'll be honest, when I first heard about this and I saw this graph, I misinterpreted it as simply a shift where the same
Yeah.
shape moves to the I guess this would be to the right. But that is very wrong. That's fundamentally not what you're asserting here.
Right, that there's also, I guess I should have put um, up and down lines over here, right? Because it's all the area between these two, um, well, it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of a sine wave, right?
Yeah.
Between these two lines, that's the area that you continue to lose out on sales. And then it's hard to predict the end of life. I mean, prediction is a challenge. I'm not very good at it for any number of reasons. So, and maybe some of us aren't either, which is why we're not making our living in Vegas. So it's hard to know when you actually end of life it. But often, too often, the end of life comes much earlier.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think I remember hearing, and this is just maybe like a silly marketing book, Al Rees' book, The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. He talked about in any vertical, there is one clear winner. And then there is a group of other second, third, fourth place. But there's always a big gap in the sort of in the public's mind. There's
Mm-hmm.
the winner, and then there's some other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we could imagine like maybe Coke was the big winner among soft drinks, and then there was Pepsi and Dr. Pepper, and all of them had their fans.
Oh,
But
yeah.
whoever is the winner carries a disproportionate share. It's not like an even distribution across. And so this idea that, yeah, if you're not there first, being first has an advantage.
So being first and good enough has an advantage. Being first and bad has a significant disadvantage.
Mm,
So
yes.
this is where this is where it's so hard. Um, you know, I really wish I could say, here's the one right way to do software, and you must always do perfect software. Well, no, sometimes getting out there first is good, and it's if you're good enough, that's fine. So we're using Zoom right now. Zoom was not the first in the audio video
Nope.
webinar space, but for us, it's a really good solution.
Hmm.
And if I take some of its competitors, so I believe that WebEx has been there forever, and GoToMeeting
Yes.
has been there forever. And for me, I much prefer the cost and the features in Zoom, and how easy it is for me to start up a meeting.
Well, and to use it as a backup. So now, so Johanna, you came to this because you were told by your manager. This is the story you were telling. We have to ship
Right.
on this date.
Right. We have to ship in August because it turns out that this was analytical chemical instrumentation, and the school started in September. So we needed to
Oh,
we needed to attract all these PhD students to our product so that they would use our product during their schooling and then buy the products when they went into the marketplace. My boss was a pretty smart guy.
that's pretty smart.
So yeah, so that's when, so I actually learned about this. I did not know it was called the cost of delay at the time. Black swan farming hadn't come out, all that stuff. And what I said to him is, got it, boss. And in about July, I said, I'm not going to make it with everything that you asked for, because he had asked for a whole lot. I was not going to make it. I said, how much is this August date really important? He said, August is really important. Let's talk about what you're going to drop.
That's where we go from perfect to good enough.
Well, it's I that was the rapid descoping phase at the end of the project.
Rapid. Okay.
But I was trying to make everything I had implemented perfect. This is back when we still had 1 and 2 person projects, because I am an old programmer. So we went over stuff, and we said, okay, we don't have to have these 3 features, and we don't have to. He first said, show me what you got. And since I was using continuous integration because I didn't know anything else, I showed him what we had. This is already in July. I said, I'm not quite done with these 3 things, and this piece over here, it's a lot harder than I thought. It's a lot harder than you thought. He said, okay, let's figure out what we can do for August. Maybe we can even release it in a little bit early in August, and then have another release of the rest of it in September or October. And now this is back, I believe that we were using disk drives, right? So the kind of disk drive that you put and paper tape. I'm an old programmer, right? So we would actually have to ship a disk drive. That was expensive. So we just, yeah, we decided not to do another release right then and there, but we could ship an update on paper tape.
So what? Okay. Well, how did this end up? What did you do?
So we shipped in early August. We captured all those PhD students. I did not ship another version until, I believe, June, because I was working on a different product, and then I went back and finished all of this. And by this time, we had a lot more customer feedback, and they said, can you add these 3 things and those 4 things and this stuff? Absolutely. We were happy to do that. We charged them more money. It was a wonderful thing.
Turns out that the things they wanted sooner were maybe things that you didn't have in your original, like, these are the things I have to finish. So you were able to adjust to what the feedback they gave.
Yeah. And it turned out, as with many projects, that what we thought, they had to have all of.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't quite need all of.
So one of the things that you teach in your book is this idea that, and as you say, the cost of delay is a real cost, dollars and cents. That's what we're talking
Yes.
about. You've got revenue and time and sales and all this stuff.
Yep.
How do we go about calculating the cost of delay? What's the equation look like?
So there's a couple of ways of doing it. One is you can say, do you actually have any idea what the revenue will be for this time period? Right. So I'm trying to do
Mhm.
the little red lines
The
across.
difference
Yeah,
between
the
shipping
difference.
on time and the delayed time.
And so let me talk about product companies and IT companies because they're a
Mm.
little bit different. So
Okay.
with product companies, you can say we expect to have, I'm going to call it as a round number, $1,000 a week in sales for 4 weeks. And we think we have a delay of 4 weeks. So that's $4,000 of
Pretty
delay.
straightforward of just
Right.
delay.
Just missed sales.
Mm-hmm.
Now you say, what is the maximum sales for this product, right? So we've gotten to the knee of the curve, and we think that we're going to have, call it $10,000 a week of maximum sales.
Mm-hmm.
So now we add 10,000 per week, 5 times 4 weeks. So that's
Okay.
$44,000. That's
Okay.
just this initial delay plus the delay from maximum sales.
Okay.
Now, I've never actually had to count the rest of the cost of delay.
Well, that's a pretty big, it's already impactful. People are probably pulling their hair out going, we have to, can't miss, right?
Exactly. So I never have to say, the area under this curve and when and end of life. I never had to do that. Because let's face it, we're talking about a lot more than $1,000 and a lot more than 10.
So so one part of the calculation is lost revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other piece to the calculation that we need to sort of, like you mentioned, we may have to send an update?
Mm-hmm. So if you have a non-digital product, which mean almost everybody is going to all digital products, but let's assume you're working on a robot,
Hmm.
right? One of my favorite things to assume. A robot is a physical product. So what can you do about getting the robot out to the customers, and then what do you do about software updates? So the question is, how early and how little can you do at the beginning to release as early as possible, and then how can you update so that you reduce this time over here? This is sort of an art. I don't
Yeah.
have a better way to put it.
Well, I think this concept. So let's just pause. Is if you have questions, use the chat window. If you have a refinement about this idea of cost of delay, before I so we've talked about product companies, but I want to come back and talk about our IT companies who do
Yes.
usually internal work that isn't sold. And maybe
Yes.
you even let me ask about service companies that do work for other people for money, because those may have a different way of looking at this or talking about it. But so if you have questions, put them in the chat window. But let's move on. So this is product companies. Does this idea, Johanna, also is it also used by product updates? Let's pretend I'm going to release version 4 of my tax software. Does this idea pertain to that too?
Especially if your competitor has already released version 4.
Uh,
So, you know how you've seen leapfrog features?
yeah. You mean like
Yeah.
between products?
Right. So between companies. So
Mhm.
company A says, look at our feature list. Our feature list is 20 things. And company B says, our feature list is 25. They've done the leapfrog.
Right.
Right. And then company A says, well, we have 30. And company B says, we have 35. And company, and they just keep going. That this is often um, in a market where the major gorilla winner has not yet shaken out, right? There's
Mm.
2 or 3 people who are leapfrogging themselves in terms of features.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know why I feel like I saw this a lot, I feel like, in the 90s and the 2000s. I'm not sure why. I don't perceive it as much anymore. Maybe it's because I use so much hosted software. And once I'm locked into like a Crowdcast or a Zoom, I'm not shopping around as much. But now that you say it, I am thinking there's this leapfrog thing. I actually saw it earlier this week, but I just missed it.
Well, unless you're actively looking at that particular kind of a company,
Yeah.
you're not going to do that. So, um, to go back to, so this was the product company, right, where you
Yes.
leapfrog.
Yes.
So the interesting thing about IT is that this is about adoption, and it's almost always about how can we help the people in the company save time or money.
Because they're oftentimes overhead reduction versus revenue increase.
Right. So sometimes it's revenue increase, but more often it's waste reduction.
Right.
And so let's assume that you have a manual process that takes a person a day a week to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's a person day. Whatever your person day is, whatever the cost is, I usually estimate it at $500 a day, which is not ridiculously expensive, and it's also not ridiculously cheap. So call it $500. If you have to delay this by a month, that's 20 person days. Right. So
Yeah.
what's 20 times 500? Is that
10,000.
Thank you.
I could be wrong, but
No, I don't do arithmetic very well. I
as
do
you told
math
me,
extremely well.
math is easy, arithmetic is hard.
Right. Give me a symbol anytime. Okay. I know, it's just sad. So, and now if you have what we normally have, it's not just one person with that problem. We normally have entire departments of that problem. So let me talk about the cost of delay for moving to more test automation to understand how you can or build automation for the product company. So people often think of this as it's our internal DevOps. Don't get me started on why DevOps would be separated from a team. That's a different conversation. But we have our internal release team, and they are IT, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
they propagate software out to everybody, and the part of what they do is manual, and it takes all 6 people a full day every week to propagate their software manually. So it's 6 people times 500, that's 3,000.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, thank God. Times 20 days. Now that's $60,000 that you're wasting. It's coming off off the profit line,
Mm-hmm.
just off the profit. And when you start talking about money like that to people, that's when you can get them to say, "Yeah, we can fund this thing."
Now I feel like you're hitting on not just like many people here might own their own business, but many may not. Many are working inside of product teams, inside of IT teams or service companies. And so now I feel like we're starting to touch on why, as engineers, should we be aware of cost of delay? Why are these numbers important? You just started to say, because now we get to enter into a different kind of conversation. We get to start to, like, what changes when an engineering lead or somebody on the team can show, oh, we have, by missing by 4 weeks, we have a cost of delay of $100,000.
Well, and often the cost of delay is hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
In either missed revenue or waste inside the organization. Is it okay if I stop to share now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. There. Because now I'm gonna be able to look at you straight on. Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, I find that so it's no longer just me saying, oh, I really want to do this thing. But instead I can point to real money that the company is spending where they did not have to spend it.
So, and a lot of Agile is about, and I know you preach this too, release early, try new things, get it out there. Has to be good enough. Doesn't have to be perfect. And a lot of times, and you mentioned this earlier, you think you know exactly what's needed. You don't until it gets in the user's hands. But people like to design a big project, a big portfolio, a big plan. They like to think it can be a perfect rollout and everything's going to go perfectly.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It just doesn't seem to work that way. And so
yeah. I mean, so this is one of the reasons I love incremental delivery, right? So back when I was a project manager even for my projects in the 70s, I used what's called stage delivery. So every single, at minimum a month, we had finished product that we could show people. Now, back in the 70s and 80s, we were still shipping on tape. It wasn't until the 90s, really. 80s? When did we get floppy disks?
The 80s, for sure. We had the 5 1/4. We had the 8 1/2.
So, yeah. So, once we had floppy disks, the cost of delivery of the product got a lot lower. So we could do even more increments. And I think that that's one of the reasons we went to many, many more frequent deliverables, right? Because we could, and then we could stop working on one project to start working on another. So one of the costs of delays that I'm kind of famous for is the cost of delay due to multitasking, right? Where you then prevent everything from shipping, right? So instead of saying, well, we have 3 weeks left on this and 6 weeks left on that and 12 weeks left on this, let's do a little bit on all 3. Now all of them are delayed. Whereas if we could just finish the 3-week thing, then that might give us more value. And then the 6-week thing, and then the 12-week thing. Now, some people here are saying, but what if it's all part of one product? What if the 12-week thing is actually more valuable than the 3 or the 6-week thing, right? That quick wins is not sufficient. We're going to get gajillions of dollars for the 12-week thing. We're only going to get thousands for the 3-week or the 6-week thing. And that's when you can say, what is our expected return and how little can we do, right? There's that how little can we do phrase that I'm so fond of. How little can we do to actually deliver something? Because if you have good enough stuff, then you don't actually have to be perfect and you don't have to have all of it. Some of your customers are going to want what you have. They won't want any more. And some of your customers are going to want all that stuff over there. And they wonder, why didn't you finish it? So, but we have options now to deliver incrementally. And the problem comes when you have a hard good, such as my favorite example, the robot.
The robot.
Right, the robot. So, if you really have, I mean, so few people have just hard goods that they almost always have some kind of a digital piece of this. That if they can get the beginning something good enough. Well, let me use my favorite example, my cell phone. Right. So
Okay.
I have I have an iPhone. For years, I had a dumb phone. And I went to the iPhone at like iPhone 3 or something because it finally had enough features that I was willing to do the upgrade to the phone. But how many times does your software on the phone get upgraded? And
All
you
the
don't
time.
need to right, all the too often as far as I'm concerned. And you don't need to upgrade the phone. Now, I
Right.
mean, Apple just got in trouble with the battery business, but um, I don't I don't have to upgrade my computer because my applications get upgraded. I don't have
Right.
to upgrade my phone because the applications and the OS gets upgraded.
I just bought, okay, I'll admit it. I now have a vacuuming robot. It's very exciting. But as you were talking, I'm realizing that I've only had it since Christmas. And of course, they've delivered like 5 updates. But they have not shipped me any new hardware, shockingly enough. I suspect that when they got the hardware good enough and working well enough, and now the software people, of course, are saying, well, what can we improve within the parameters of the hardware, within the phone, within the computer, within the robot that you already have?
And they can upgrade the firmware.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you have to plug it into an internet connection or something.
It
But
happens through Bluetooth with the phone. It's all very magical these days.
yeah,
But okay, so let's back up here because you touched on something which is exactly where I want to go. But I want to offer people, again, if you're watching, we want this to be an opportunity for you to ask questions. If you're listening and you're trying to figure out how to apply cost of delay to your organization, to your situation, maybe you're not even sure what the numbers look like, but you have a hunch it is expensive to delay. Like, put something in the chat window. The chat box is at the bottom of your screen. And we'd love to address that, make this really useful for you. And again, I really have in my head, and Johanna, I think you can tell me if I'm wrong, that for the engineer or the engineering manager, understanding the cost of delay can be a powerful way to start a conversation with a client, a boss, a marketing department, a product team, whoever, where you can start to introduce that if we delay until it's perfect, because most people think if you just keep doing it until it's perfect, right, then that's the optimum to ship, but you're probably measuring the wrong thing. You're missing a cost of delay of shipping weeks or months earlier.
yeah. I was looking to see if I can find my value over time graph, and it's in a folder. I
That's
don't know
okay.
where it is.
So
But so imagine if you will that any given feature has value, right? Has a value of $1,000 for this customer. And over time that value decays. That's one of the things that helps us, at least it helps me understand, how do I make sure I'm not trying to do it all before we release, but so we can get something now that's valuable, but I have not yet decayed the value of all of this entire feature set by delaying the release of it.
So up till now, we've talked about revenue, lost revenue as being one of the costs of delay. But this perspective is, and it just sort of dawned on me, if I have a feature that to my customer cuts $1,000 a week, I don't have the problem because I'm not a chemical engineer or a robot maker or whatever, right? I'm just a software developer and my company sells software. But if I can then start to look at the cost my customers incur. Is that sort of what you're saying? Like if I have a feature that has a value to the end user, then a delay would have a cost to the end user is going to pay a penalty because they don't receive it as quickly.
Right. And so this is what helps me, at least, and I'm hoping it helps other people, is that we think about these huge feature sets. We are extremely good about understanding everything we want to do. And that's
Yeah.
a good thing, except that our customers often need one piece of that. Or
Just
maybe,
one. That'd be
yeah, or
cool.
maybe if it's, I've been talking about feature sets. So if there are 30 stories in a feature set, the customers might need the first 5 or 6. And the longer you delay all of those features, because we have to have it all, the less value you provide for the customer over time. So the key is to give the customer value now, and then how soon can you give them more value, possibly in this feature set, possibly in a different feature set, and continue like that. And that increases the value over time of your product. But you don't have to do it all.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have a question from the audience. So it's from Brian, and I'll read it real quick. It says, years ago, I went to a point of sale conference where they talked about the cost of having inventory in stock. An unreleased feature is going to be inventory that's unsold, right? Getting a thumbs up, Brian. I also had an old man that ran a pawn shop tell me, you make more money selling something quickly for less than hanging on to it for an asking price because the cost to wait was too high. What are your thoughts on those two ideas, Johanna? You're giving us a thumbs up.
Yeah, so that's exactly the right thing. And so the whole idea of inventory in software is that it's work in progress, right? So it's not releasable. And if you can release it, now you can get feedback from your customers. Can they use it? Are they willing to pay more for it? Do they want more out of this, or are they fine with what they have? Um, I often, so I think that my customers need everything from me,
Right.
and what a surprise, they don't.
They don't. You know, isn't inventory actually one of the 7 deadly sins of waste?
Yeah.
From the Toyota production system,
Yep.
which is you talk a lot about lean. If you're interested, there, Tom and Mary Poppendike have a couple of good books on lean software development, and I'm getting to interview them on this series here in a couple months. I'm very excited about that. I remember back at the company I used to work at, we would make windows and doors, and the plant made them, but if they didn't sell, they had to be put on a truck, moved to another location, put in this big warehouse. They could have been damaged at multiple places along the way. And one time, that warehouse actually sprung a terrible leak. There was a flood, and all of our inventory was destroyed. All these windows and doors were broken and unusable. The cost of storing something for physical goods is very high. I have also,
It's the same thing in software.
I was going to say,
yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a perfectly good feature get built, checked in, tested, but actually maybe it gets removed before release because it's many months until the next release, and they find out, nope, nobody wants that. I've seen that. And what a huge waste. Okay.
Yep.
What now, Johanna, you turned us to this idea of delay from multitasking. And your book, which is fantastic, has many features on the reasons for delay. And you frame them as the cost of delay from this, from that. And you must have 20 reasons in it, maybe more.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot. And just to be clear, because I'm just curious, is the cost calculation for these different reasons generally the same? It's about missing an opportunity to ship early. And so these are the things that hold us back from shipping early, like multitasking.
Yes. So it's all what prevents us from shipping, or even just on time. Right?
We can't
We don't
ship
have to be
perfectly.
early.
Yeah.
If we're just on time,
Okay.
let's be on time.
So we don't have time today in the last 15 minutes to go through all of them, but do you have a top 3 favorite that you either see consistently or are really subtle and people aren't noticing?
So the multitasking thing, right? That's a huge deal. If we could just stop multitasking, we would probably be much better off for everything. I find that waiting for decisions and waiting on other people. So there's one of the things I have trouble with, I'm not sure how to frame this. Maybe you can help me frame it more nicely.
Just spit it out
Too,
there.
okay. Too often managers delay the start of a project. They're thinking, which project should we do? Which project should we do? We can't make a freaking decision. That is, and the whole project is only 6 months, but they've taken 6 months to think about it. And now the project is late. So there's all this incentive and there's all this idiocy. That's a cost of delay, the cost of decision-making time, especially from other people.
Yeah.
And then there's the cost of waiting for other people. So I have a client who has a lot of cross-functional feature teams. They're missing a UX person for every single team. And their product is based about user experience. So they have, and so the way the UX people are trying to manage this, they have something like 10 UX people and 90 teams. So it's first come. I know. I mean, it's not even close.
No.
It's not even close. So they have a first come, first serve, and they will be with the team for an entire sprint, which is a good thing. And now the other team's work is queuing up, waiting for the next UX person. And if you need a UX person in the next sprint, you have to go back to the end of the line. And you're not guaranteed to get the same person you had. So they have the cost. I said to them, if you have 10 UX people, you can only have 10 UX stories.
Yeah.
At any one time.
And they probably thought that was crazy. They have so much to do.
Yes. So I showed them with cost of delay what they were doing. And you could have done this with a value stream map. There's any number of ways you could do this. But I think it's so important to see the delays in your system. So it's not just delays for making a decision. It's the delays built into your system by not having a full cross-functional team.
Yeah, I can't tell you the number of times I've been working with a team and we'll get 3/4 of the way through the sprint and the blocked column, which always seems to be the middle, I don't know why, is full. And I'm like, what's all this? They're like, well, we're waiting for product, we're waiting for management, we're waiting for DevOps, we're waiting for design, we're waiting for copy. We're doing a lot of waiting. And so we have this really big area of stuff we have partially worked on. Can't be deployed, can't be delivered. So it's inventory and it's completely useless until we get a decision or a design or something else.
Right.
Huge
So
cost.
this waiting on other people, the good news is your team is visualizing it. That's really good.
Right. The bad news was at the time we didn't always know what to do about it. We would just go, I guess we have to wait. Right. So, and then the team started to do weird things. Like they started to look for ways to not need like they would try and route around them, almost like water won't go through rock as easily as it goes through soil. So we'd be like, well, maybe we can just mock up our own design. Maybe we can just write our own copy, and ways to sort of move around that. Even though the best practice said use UX people, the team would say, well, I bet we can do an okay job at it because
yeah, and I think that this is really important. How bad is the okay job? And chances are quite good it's not bad enough.
Yeah.
But I'm not in favor of bad software. I'm not in favor of bad design. But especially if you have a scarce resource like a UX person or like a testing person, then if you have that person pair or mob with the entire team can then learn how to do what they do.
And okay, I'll be honest. I remember the UX people looking at designs that I thought were okay. They were not fantastic. They were not terrible. They were perfectly usable. But because of the idea of roles and expertise and authority, they would say, that doesn't have our stamp. It can't ship. Which is sort of silliness, because I think the customer would have been delighted just to get something in this area.
Yeah. And that's why using the cost of delay, when you say, is it worth waiting for us to wait 3 weeks? And here is the literal cost of 3 weeks of wait plus a pissed off customer. Sorry.
I think we got it. Yeah.
Okay. And the eventual lack of sales
Right.
because we don't have perfect UX.
You know, I love the way you framed it, because oftentimes I was not the final decision maker, but the ability to bring options and say, I have some data, and we could, the cost of this delay of 4 weeks is $25,000. And the cost of shipping now might mean, like, maybe we have a customer who feels that they didn't get every feature in. I'm going to package this, and let's bring it to someone who is ultimately responsible for those things, maybe the owner, maybe the product manager, whatever. But I can start an informed conversation rather than either hiding in my office and ignoring it, or being Chicken Little, because I got accused of being the sky is falling person a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to be Chicken Little either. But I do want to be able to say, here are the pros, right?
Mm-hmm.
We will get a beautiful UX. We will get a whatever, right? And yes, that is the right thing to do. And is it acceptable if we go with slightly less quality or slightly less beauty
Mm-hmm.
if we give our customer what they want now and we get revenue?
Right. Right. Or we keep a customer promise because we told them what
Right,
was coming in this release. That's
right.
sort of like revenue, because if you don't do that, they go shopping for other products.
Yes,
It's lost
yes,
revenue.
they do. Yeah.
So if we go back to multitasking in the last few minutes here, one of the things that I think about, I just got done doing a discussion about holacracy and this idea of sort of people choosing a lot about their own work, which sounds delightful, but in reality means that you have people wearing 6 to 7 hats at a time. And so there's this constant pulling away. People will be carved into 20%, 5 or 6 different 20% buckets. You, on the other hand, keep talking about two crazy ideas which are becoming popular: mobbing and swarming. And when I talk to people about this, they've either never heard of it, or they're like, wait, I thought if I just had one person on a task, that was good enough. But you're talking about multiple people, one task. So first, could you define mobbing and swarming for us?
Sure. Mobbing and swarming both have a WIP limit, work in progress limit of 1.
Okay.
So the entire team works on one story, not necessarily a task, but one story,
One
right?
story. Okay.
One feature that you could release for revenue.
Okay. Okay. I like that
Uh,
definition.
okay. So one story. Now, swarming is something I've been doing for a gazillion years. I'm a developer, you're a tester, there's a UX person. We go off and do our own thing. In an hour, we come back and talk to each other. Where are you? I'm here. I'm a little stuck on this. Da, da, da. I have these questions. We answer each other's questions. We go back out. An hour later, we come back. And this continues until I say, I'm done. Who needs help?
Mm.
Who can use me in any way, shape, or form for the rest of today until we finish this one story? Nobody starts another story until the
Ah.
team has finished the story.
So maybe the tester goes, I'm only halfway done. So you, as the programmer, then say, well, great. How can I help? What would you like me
And
to do?
the tester might say, I want you to test this. Tester might say, I want hooks for automation. The tester might say, I need data. I need data in a spreadsheet.
I feel like you're channeling a past person here. I don't know this person, but
Yeah,
okay.
it's true. That's what that
Oh,
person said.
like test data, right? Like I need my
Yeah,
inputs. Ah, okay. I
yeah.
have met that person. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
So yeah, so and that's a very helpful thing because now the tester can depend on this person to help them. So that's swarming, where we each do our own thing until we're done enough to ask who needs help.
And we have a contraction. How's everybody doing? And an expansion. Do our own thing. A contraction, and we might do that 4 or 5 times a day, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I happen to like every hour or every 45 minutes to do what I call a check-in.
A check-in. That's where we come
Yeah,
together. How are we doing?
I don't call it a stand-up. It's not really a stand-up. It's checking in with each other to make sure that we understand where are we okay, right? All that stuff.
And that's swarming. So then
That's swarming.
mobbing is
Mobbing is one story, one monitor, one keyboard,
no.
and everyone's watching what's on the screen. This works best with a projector.
Oh, so you get people in a room, maybe around a table, you put the code on the wall. And do you find then, so this sounds like the sort of thing that a team, maybe it maxes out at 7 or 8 people can do effectively, or?
I think you can swarm with more, but I really like 5 or 6 people on a team anyway.
So if we have teams of 5 or 6 and we ask them to try, this sprint, let's choose one story. Everyone works on it. We're going to swarm because maybe we're interdisciplinary, testing, QA, design, whatever, programming. We're going to come back together. We used to call this war rooming because we literally sat everybody in the same room. We didn't tell everybody we didn't have that formality, but I like it, of check in every hour. We just assumed that people would, and mostly they did, talk to each other because you had to move your giant monitor, your 17-inch CRT monitor, into the conference room, and we would bring in lunch and all that stuff.
Yeah. And the nice thing about mobbing is, if you know about pairing is when we do this with just 2 people. But mobbing is the entire team, and teams learn amazingly well. So, and they learn, it's not just everyone learns from the developers. No, it's
No?
the testers teach the people, and they say, here's the kind of thing I'm worried about. I want an automated test for this. And then somebody will say, oh, did you think about doing it this way?
I love it. And it seems like it really now generally teams stick together for a period of months or years. So as they do this sounds like a skill. It sounds like it'd be a little chaotic at first. So we could expect productivity until they found a transforming idea, to go down, right?
Well, it's uneven.
It's
right?
uneven, yeah. And then is this the sort of thing where at the end of each iteration, we're going to hold a retrospective, just like in other Agile ceremonies, and we're going to say,
oh, yeah.
How could we do that better the next time?
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. I'm actually thinking about how can I both experience and help some of my clients with this, because I never really understood the difference between the mobbing, which is around one keyboard and monitor, everyone's brain. And just to be clear, this could also be a designer, a programmer, a tester, a DevOps person.
Oh, yeah. It's whatever your team is.
And does that mean that maybe sometimes the monitor's running code, other times the monitor's running Photoshop, because the designer's like, let me mock this up, but we are all 100% focused on the same task together.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yes.
It's craziness. But
isn't it wonderful?
and okay, so and this really works, right? People.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't hate it?
No. So not
Generally.
Everybody is a fan.
Of course.
Right? But when I teach Agile and Lean, I teach people how to swarm. I actually say, take your smallest story, one that you think you can do in an hour, figure out how you're all going to go off and do your own thing, and come back and tell me it's done. And
that's
then
great.
About half the teams actually finish it. And then I say, okay, for those of you who didn't finish and those of you who did, those of you who did take your next story, we're all going to mob now.
Oh.
And that allows the teams that didn't finish to finish together.
Yeah.
And so now they have the experience. Okay, so it's just an hour of swarming and mobbing, but they did it in a way that allowed them to succeed.
Right. So important, right? Because and there's learning with both failure and success, because that's just a part of life if you choose to take the learning mindset. Well, Johanna, we have reached our hour. I appreciate so much. Thank you to everyone who joined.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, this will be, I'll send it out. Johanna, I'll happily send you a copy of the video and we'll send it out. Maybe we'll even put it on YouTube or something. We can just send out links to it if that works.
That'd be good.
Johanna, remind us where we can find your book and the name of the book real quick.
So is this backwards or?
Nope, looks perfect.
Okay, Diving for Hidden Treasures. Uncovering the cost of delay in your project portfolio or wherever you have the cost of delay. And everything else is on jrothman.com. Well, everything is on jrothman.com.
It is, and this is available electronically, probably on LeanPub. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle. It's physical book. You are everywhere. You are the master of getting the word out about your wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.